Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 175 of College Football Throwdown. I'm your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined in person by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hello, Husker fans and college football fans. It's nice to be together here in the beautiful state of Michigan.
That's right. I'm here to visit Dad this August, so we decided to do a podcast together. This will be our last one before the real start of the college football season. We are, of course, a father-son duo here to talk about college football by college football fans for college football fans. Today we'll be talking about our Nebraska Cornhuskers, how fall practice has been going, and preview the upcoming UTEP game, our first of the season, as well as some of the national storylines that have been going on in the world of CFB. So, a lot to get to today.
Lots to get to.
Yep. But before we dive into all that, we're going to go ahead and stick with our tradition and open up a cold beverage.
Okay.
I've got myself a Labatt Blue Light here, Canadian Pilsner, that I can only get out here in the Midwest.
There you go. And it's one of my favorite beers, so I love that too. But I happen to be drinking a little local favorite from Traverse City Whiskey Company's bourbon, and making it into what we call the Michigan Mule. A little bit of ginger beer and a little lime juice and a little bitters, and it tastes wonderful. So cheers, son.
All right.
We can actually physically cheer today.
That's
since
right.
We're together. Boom.
You couldn't quite hear it, folks, but we did. Alrighty. So to kick things off today, we'll start with our national topics. And one of the big ones that's happened since we last recorded is some news in regards to Michigan football, which is, of course, appropriate given that we're in Michigan at the moment. One of them has to do with their former coach, Jim Harbaugh. He has been penalized by the NCAA with a 4-year show cause order for impermissible contact with players during COVID. This was back several years ago when there's still certain COVID rules in place. And because Harbaugh apparently did not volunteer his records and like his cell phone data and things like that, it was upgraded to a level 1 cause. So if he were to return to college football, he would be suspended for his first year. Which basically means he's really hoping that he does well in the NFL.
Exactly. But again, it will be a little bit of a broken record on this podcast, Alex. Our 175th. I might throw that back out there again. That's pretty amazing. We'll have to think about something really special for the 200th.
Yeah.
But it's just toothless. Okay, your Harbaugh's like 61, 62 years old. If he stays in the NFL for 3-4 years minimum, and then he wanted to come back to the college world, then who cares, right? Like it is gonna not affect him. In all likelihood, he would probably retire and walk away from the sport or get another NFL gig before he'd ever come back to college. He won a national championship at his alma mater. Check. He's done. And so the NCAA punishing him at this point in time, 4 years after the incidents that we're talking about, is absurd. And the absolute snail's pace that the NCAA uses, it just makes them even more inept than they already are.
Right, because yes, it should be mentioned this has nothing to do with the sign stealing controversy from last year, because that is still under investigation. Now, Jim was kind of suspended from being on the field for the last 3 games of last season because of that initial investigation, their initial findings. But in terms of like the full report and punishments for that is still an ongoing thing. Correct. To your point, we might not find out till 2025.
Right, and there's another thing even in between there that had to do with grade modification or influence that hasn't even come to punishment yet.
Right. It is worth noting that they had announced that Jim Harbaugh was going to be like an honorary captain for Michigan's first game, but they have since backed off on that. I think partially because, while Jim has this heat on him, so to speak, they didn't want to invite any more, talking points, I think.
Exactly. That was, yep. And that's just cover. And but it's just it's amazing to me. And if you wonder why certain programs seem to be repeat violators, like Michigan, people have certainly thrown out lots of accusations at Alabama, at Georgia, and some other schools, Ohio State, LSU, USC. The bottom line is a lot of these major programs are ignoring the NCAA. They're pushing the envelope and going beyond the envelope, and they're not getting punished for it.
Right. And this wasn't all the Michigan news that happened over the past month. Their current coach, Sharon Moore, Sharon, got in trouble for deleting a text thread that was with Connor Stallions, who was the assistant who was the one undercover on the sidelines, stealing the signs. He's the one who was kind of found out.
From future opponents.
Right.
Right. And that particular investigation has not yet completed, and they haven't processed that for punishment for the school yet. But the fact that it's already come out and they've now been formally charged or formally informed that this is happening, and in that dialogue or communication, it came out that they have documented proof that Sharon Moore deleted his text string with Connor Stallions on the day or the day after all this stuff started to bubble.
Right. It was, on the day that the first news story came out about it. Now, unlike Harbaugh, it seems like Moore has been more cooperative with the NCAA, so it is only a level 2 violation, not a level 1. It says there will be some sort of show cause penalty and possible suspension for that. He was also involved with some COVID-19, that same COVID-19 recruiting that Harbaugh was in trouble for. There's no hard penalties, at least from the news stories I was seeing, in terms of what the punishments are yet.
Right.
But
and there won't be.
Well, there'll be something, but you say, it'll be a slap on the wrist.
It'll be toothless. Yep. The NCAA is done. It's done as an organization that we need to replace it. It's not recoverable.
Yeah, sad, but it may be true. And then this was some interesting news in regards to Colorado, who's, of course, on our radars as Nebraska fans, because we'll be playing them in our second game of the year, this time at home in Lincoln. And, of course, Deion Sanders is constantly in the news for one reason or another. And it has been definitely a bit of a rocky offseason for them. We've talked in the past about all the transfers out of the program and the new transfers into the program, so they've really shuffled up their roster considerably. And now there have been reports from anonymous former players, saying that the locker room environment there was very toxic, with violence being encouraged in terms of fistfights between players, guns being displayed openly, by players, gambling going on, things like that. The fact that Deion has self-admitted that he's not there to develop younger talent. He wants to get good talent shipped into his program ready to go and fit into his system. So my impression would be that, he still has a ton of talent, but a lot of that talent may well leave after this year, like his son, and people like that.
Yeah.
So I think there is definitely pressure on Deion to show better results this year versus last year, show improvement, because the off the field stuff has not been positive for Colorado. So it's if we're going to get this negative publicity, but if we get the negative publicity doesn't matter if he has the results on the field, basically.
Right.
But if he doesn't, the negative publicity will come to bite him.
Right. Exactly. Yep. That's all gets swept under the rug if he wins. But there's clearly some tension, some pressure there. The media has been asking some pointed questions, which of course, Coach Deion Sanders doesn't respond well when he is challenged in a legitimate way. He immediately turns it on them and tries to make it about them, right? So I think that kind of I would describe it as sophomoric or even childlike behavior that he's been able to get away with because he's been a superstar his whole life. He's never actually had to deal with things in a respectful, structured manner like
other coaches
do. Yeah.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Yep, that's right. And then another piece of news that we were kind of paying some attention to is the ACC. They had a withdrawal deadline of August 15th coming up in some contract within that conference, and the two big players there are FSU and Clemson, who we've heard were looking to leave the conference, or at least get out of like this payment that is contractually obligated to the conference.
Grant of rights.
The grant of rights, yes, that extends out into late 2020s or whatever it is. And that deadline has passed, and there's been really no news there. So all the speculation is that they probably put some feelers out to the Big Ten and the SEC and didn't get a great response back, or at least they weren't looking to expand immediately. So it sounds like the realignment talk will probably quiet down until 2025, maybe after the current season.
That's what I'm speculating, is that they now, if they feel like they've got their ducks in a row from a legal standpoint, and they're obviously going to be another year closer to the end of this grant of rights thing, which reduces all the financials and the money, then it's going to be something we can do again.
Right. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, there have been surprises midway through the season before, so we'll see if we get one of those again. And we've got our neighbor mowing his lawn, if you hear that in the background.
That's one of the beauties of being in an RV.
That's right. And one I know you were interested in talking about, Dad, is Kirk Ferentz, the longtime coach of the Iowa football team. I want to say, he's the coach with the longest tenure currently.
He is the highest tenured coach in the Big Ten, and probably one of the top in the country.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it might be the whole country. Mm-hmm. But he and Iowa's wide receiver coach, John Budmeyer, are under a self-imposed 1-game suspension and loss of 1 week of off-campus recruiting. This was self-imposed by Iowa in results of investigation with the NCAA that they were cooperating with about communications in 2022 about talking to a kid before he entered the portal. So basically impermissibly contacting a player.
Yeah, the player was Cade McNamara, the quarterback for Michigan. So effectively they were tampering with a player, which has become a very common thing to do. And it somehow came out that they had some conversations. Ironic, I know, with all the Michigan talk we've already had regarding recruiting violations and other various competition violations. But again, that punishment is toothless and will be accepted by the NCAA because they have no authority to really press for anything more severe. And I find it even more ironic because, again, you're talking about 2022. We're now 3/4 of the way through 2024, so 2.5 years later, and we're just now getting the punishment for something that this person did. You're lucky that Cade McNamara happens to be playing for like the 7th year otherwise he would already be gone, and this would be a complete non-factor. But the bottom line is the NCAA's inability to address its issues in a timely fashion makes all of their punishments absurd, inappropriate, and way, way too little too late.
Right. I mean, I think regardless of whether Cade was there or not, they would have been punished.
Yeah.
But like to your point, we talked about last year with Jim Harbaugh, sitting out of a game, right? Like not being on the field to coach during a game. But if you're allowed to be there during warm-ups and practices and all the build-up to it, game planning, then the heavy-duty lift of the head coach is already come and gone. So being not on the field for one game is, barely a punishment at all, really. And I saw another headline about the Miami of Ohio head coach basically saying that Alabama stole a kicker from them using the same method of like talking to him before and basically encouraging him to go in the transfer portal, and then he did and went to Alabama. So we know this is going on, in various areas of the college football landscape right now. And if this is as bad as the punishments get for it, for like a one-time provable thing or whatever, then coaches are going to keep doing it because they're not being discouraged to avoid it.
Right, exactly. I totally agree. But so what's the answer?
Well, we did discuss, because, an old punishment that the NCAA would do would be to reduce your scholarship limit. But nowadays, if you did that, then you could kind of cover the amount that was allocated to scholarships through NIL payments.
And so it would be a non-factor.
Right. So, but the thing the NCAA could do, like we discussed on the previous podcast about these new roster sizes, putting caps on the amount that you can have on the team, they could make that significantly smaller, cut 20 players or something from that.
Right.
That's a way they can legitimately punish a team.
That is the new scholarship reduction, is roster reduction.
Right.
Where they're going to force a team to have a smaller roster. But bottom line is, I don't think a constitutional convention or some reinvention of the NCAA as it currently exists is a healthy or appropriate way for us to go. I think the water is under the bridge. The boat has left the station. Whatever you want to say, it's time for the Collegiate Athletic Association of these conferences, right? Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12. They need to get together, organize a plan, kick off their own conversation with some really good lawyers, preferably ones from the NFL who understand contracts and all that, both from the agent side as well as the agent side and players side, and then also from the management side. Get those folks in a room and pick their brains and build a vision for a new organization that they can create that actually has teeth, that has enforceability, that has contracts. And that's where the labor side of this now, and that's why they're talking about bringing NIL in-house and somehow getting some control of that whole thing, so they can begin to create a contract-type relationship situation, which will still give these athletes an opportunity to make money and benefit from their name, image, and likeness, but they will also have to sign a contract that commits them to certain things, including time at a university and things of that nature.
Right. Yep. Well, and I guess in that scenario, the NCAA would still exist for the majority of colleges because, it's only a handful, really, that is in those four major conferences versus the wider world of, all FBS and FCS level programs, right? So the NCAA would still exist for those particular areas.
Right. That's true.
This is just kind of a funny piece of news I saw that I don't know if you saw or not. It said that Oklahoma State players are going to have QR codes on the back of their helmets that link to the general NIL fund for the team.
Whoa. What? Say that again.
Oklahoma State players are going to have QR codes on the back of their helmets, and if you scan it, it's going to take you to the general NIL fund for the team. So I think the idea is, they show off the back of their helmets while they're celebrating a touchdown, and if you're feeling particularly inspired by that or whatever, you scan it on your TV, and then you donate to the program.
Interesting. I wonder why they wouldn't be able to do that by having scanning things on the sidelines, on the boundaries around the, you know what I mean? There's a lot of ads that are often presented on the sides of the stadium, the walls, if you will, of the stadium. If that's legitimate at the helmet level, it seems like you could also do that, in all kinds of other ways. That's a brilliant idea.
Okay, interesting. I wasn't sure if you were going to like it or if you're going to mock it.
I hate it. No. I hate it because I hate the NIL concept, the throw it over the wall that, again, the NCAA did that was terrible. And our lawnmower is back. But the thing is that, we at the end of the day need people to understand that we want to have a product that's competitive. We want to have a product that has a degree of fairness in it and that is transparent enough that who's buying players and who's buying championships and who's not, so that at least there is a little bit of accountability to the process.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I do agree that it's a creative way to, go about it. We'll have to see when we watch their games, instead of the players showing off their face at the camera, they're going to turn around to show the back of their heads, to show the QR code, then you're going to go to try to scan it on the TV.
And then they'll cut away. They'll cut away. Yeah, I can see all kinds of that kind of crap.
Yeah, it'll be funny, but interesting to see, and if other schools adopt a similar practice. And then the last bit of kind of national news that we wanted to talk a bit about is the AP and coaches poll. The preseason polls were released, I think, last week. Obviously they don't mean a whole lot, because no one's played a game yet, but
True.
It is interesting to see where people are sitting. And the top 7 are the same between both the coaches and the AP. So that is Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame.
Interesting. So they're exactly the same.
Up to there, and
That's
then
good.
they start to deviate.
Gotcha.
Yep, and I saw some article that Nebraska did get a few votes, probably for 25 or whatever.
Right.
So hopefully we work our way in there.
Well, that would be the hope. If we can be competitive, win more than less of the tight, one-score games that we lost all of them last year, then there's a decent chance that we'll be in that 7-8 win category and maybe a borderline top 25 team if we can nudge into 9-3.
Right. And Michigan is number 9 on the AP poll and number 8 on the coaches poll. So clearly, they think that they're going to take a bit of a step down with the new coach, coming off of the big national championship win. Would that be your assessment as well?
Well, I would say yes, absolutely. But it's equally or even more so about all the talent they lost, right? Michigan is definitely going to take a step back. And I think everybody knows that. Even Michigan fans like my friend Brian, who's been on the podcast with us before, who's a huge Michigan fan, he would acknowledge that this is looking like more of an 8-4, 9-3 kind of season for them because they have a very difficult schedule and they just maybe don't have the particularly offensive talent that they had last year. A lot of great offensive players, including their quarterback and their great running backs, and a bunch of their offensive linemen are now playing on Sunday.
Right. Yep, you're always going to take a step back when you lose that many,
Yep. The same will
players.
be true for Washington, who I don't know where they fell in the top 25 or even if they made it into the top 25, but they fell precipitously even though they were in the national championship game last year. They lost their coach, similar to Michigan. They lost a ton of talent, similar to Michigan, and they're transitioning to the Big Ten, so a new conference.
Right.
And those 3 things have all dropped the expectation on that program considerably. Now, they might still be very good. I think this coach they got is a very good coach and will ultimately do really good things for Washington. But this first year might be a little rough when comparing it to last season.
Admittedly, my screenshot here cuts off at number 22, but Washington's not in the top 22. Okay. I can say that.
There you go.
So yeah,
all righty,
definitely fell off.
Gotcha.
So now we're going to transition on to our main topic, which is of course our Nebraska Cornhuskers. And there has, of course, been a lot going on both in the recruiting side of things, transfer portal, all that fun stuff, as well as then actually getting into fall practice and hearing how the players are doing and things of that nature. We have had a few injuries, unfortunately. Teddy Prochaska is out with an ACL injury, and Javin Wright was announced to be out with an injury. We believe that's blood clots.
Right. So not really associated with a football event, but more of a health issue that he has had in the past. They haven't actually said blood clots. They're not saying what it is. That's just speculative based on his history. But he's a very talented, tremendous athlete, and we're going to miss him. But the good news is we do have some depth at that position, unlike the left tackle, where Teddy's loss is big because of the lack of depth.
Right. On the positive side of things, we did get a commit who switched his commitment from Oregon to Nebraska. That's 4-star wide receiver Isaiah Mosey.
Yes.
So that's a piece of good news.
Well, and you might recognize that last name because we hired his dad as an assistant coach. And that obviously had an impact on Isaiah's recruitment and caused him to switch. But the interesting aspect of that is even before Coach Rule was involved in college football and he was still at the NFL, he knew Coach Mosey, and he was a guy that was already on Coach Rule's radar as a player, or excuse me, as a coach. He would want to pursue and get onto his staff at some point in the future because of his interactions with him over the years. He had been an assistant and a head coach in Missouri, Kansas City area for a number of years, and had produced a lot of great players.
Right. In terms of recruiting stuff, we were going after David Sanders pretty aggressively. He came and visited campus a couple times. I know Dylan Raiola showed him around and stuff, but he ended up committing to Tennessee. But we have another high-profile commitment, or player, I should say, who is currently, visiting a few schools. That's Michael Terry III, and he's still interested in Nebraska. He's coming for the visit during the Colorado game.
That's right. And, here's the thing. I would love it if we get Michael Terry, but if we don't, I'm not going to hold, that as some failure by Coach Rule's staff to not be able to, rein in the big fish. You're a team that hasn't had a winning season in about 5 or 6 years or whatever. And so you gotta acknowledge where you are, and the fact that these players are intimately interested in us enough that they're coming to visit multiple times, sometimes on their own dollar. They are getting a feel for Nebraska's culture and saying, "Hey, this is interesting. This is a place I might want to consider," and they're staying with it. And I think that speaks volumes to where Nebraska might be in a future date when we have had a few seasons where we win 8 or 9 games. Then that conversation with a David Sanders might be a little different, right?
Right. And one other just little injury update is that Tristan Alvano, our place kicker, has been recovering from a groin injury. So it's discussed that our walk-on, John Hull, could potentially start in the first game in his place. But you were saying that he has been practicing with the team and stuff, so hopefully it's not
And John Hull has a very strong leg, and so I think he has performed well enough during fall camp that Coach Rule and our special teams coach Foley have both indicated that they're very comfortable with Hull as our starter, and I can tell you right now, Hull is going to start the first game. And Tristan Alvano will start down the road after he fully recovers. They say he's about 90% right now, but he can't do kickoffs. He can't kick long field goals, things like that. So they're going to probably play it safe with him and let him continue to work his way back to a full 100% where he is really comfortable swinging that leg fully, right? And not having to feel like he has to hold back for fear of re-injuring that leg. And in the meantime, Hull's going to be our guy.
Right. And I know you had, this is speculation on your part, but you had mentioned that potentially some of the inconsistency we had seen from Tristan in the past was maybe due to this groin injury in some form or another. So if we do give him the time to properly heal, maybe he'll come back to us and be a better overall kicker.
Right. I mean, he was really spectacular towards the last year, second half of the last year of his high school career. He was kicking as good as anybody in the country in really challenging conditions. He was kicking in Nebraska, So,
right.
So, and last year he had some points of struggle, but his stats weren't the worst we've had in the last 10 years. And he clearly has a strong leg. He's a very competitive, athletic kid. So I'm actually confident Tristan will be a factor for Nebraska in the future. But this John, I think it's John Hall, is he's also a Nebraska kid. Who went and played and did very well at a lower division last year, and then now has come to Nebraska. So
right, he's a walk-on.
He's a walk-on, but he is every bit the kicker that maybe Tristan was going to be, right? So let's just hang with both of them and see if we can have 2 great kickers, over the next 2 to 3 years.
That'd be great. Now talking about fall practice in general. From the most recent scrimmage, which was last Saturday, as we're recording this, Matt Rule in his press conference mentioned that he was critical of the first team offense for a number of penalties that they had, motion type stuff and other things. And then the second team offense turned the ball over several times. So he was basically, being a little hard on the guys, trying to kind of calm down some of the hype that's coming from the Nebraska community, basically saying, we're close to being good, but we're not there yet.
Right. And I think that both is him managing expectations, but also him trying to put the brakes on, because I think we are behind where he hoped we would be. I think what I interpret from that, and I know that he's not said this, but my interpretation of Coach Rule is he's trying to prepare the Nebraska faithful for the fact that we're not quite where he hoped we would be. But he's not going to say it in those words. So I'm really hopeful that we start to build enough confidence during this first game against UTEP that we can then translate that into the Colorado. And if we get through that Colorado game without massive injuries and without some kind of mental collapse where we make a bunch of penalties or mental mistakes or whatever, or one of our quarterbacks or multiple of our quarterbacks makes a bunch of bonehead choices because they get duped into it. That's the thing that Colorado's going to do, and I'm confident that Coach Rule's going to prepare them for this. But their defensive secondary, which
Right.
they have a name for them at Colorado. What did you say they were? They were the something of doom or whatever.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
But well, it wasn't doom. It was something else. But they have a name already that they named their secondary, because they have one guy who's almost certainly a first-round draft choice in the secondary, and they have another 2 or 3 guys that they have gotten on the through the portal that are very talented and potentially could make for a very formidable secondary. And that secondary is going to bait the young freshman, Dylan Raiola. They're going to bait him.
I know you were talking about their star player, Travis
Hunter.
Right, Hunter Travis, that he was he's going to be, on our best wide receiver, and you thought that the best thing would be just to ignore him, try to frustrate him.
Right. I would play away from Travis Hunter and let the other receivers get the bulk of the passes, because I know from watching some Colorado games last year that Travis Hunter is a guy that baits. He is so athletic that he can lay back, make it look like somebody's open, where he is purposely not as close to the defender or as close to the receiver as he should be, so that you'll be baited into throwing it to somebody. And then because he's such an explosive athlete, he appears and picks it off. And he did that multiple times because he has such a good feel for the game. He sees route combinations and patterns, and he'll leave his player and jump the route and double team the other guy, because he will read that freshman quarterback is locking in, and he will say, okay, I'm willing to risk that he's not going to see this guy that's now going to go wide open, and I'm going to go over here and pick that guy off. I'm going to jump in front of this ball and take it to the house. And he did that multiple times last year.
Right.
So,
yes. Of course, we're already looking ahead to the Colorado game, because that is such a big game for us early on in our season. But to your point, it was confirmed this week that Dylan Raiola is going to be the starting quarterback at Nebraska. Not really a surprise to anyone, I think. If he wasn't the starting quarterback, it would have been a sign that Dylan had encountered some more issues in fall camp than anticipated, and that he was maybe too young to get the starting job. But seems like he has impressed the coaches. Obviously, there are some issues, like Coach Rule mentioned, the penalties. That's going to be something that he'll have to manage, in those environments. Now, thankfully, we are playing Colorado at home this year, so it'll be a more friendly environment for him for that challenge.
right.
But I'm definitely excited for that. You were saying that the likely order of the quarterbacks is that we've got Dylan Raiola at number 1, Harbaugh at number 2, and then Danny Kaelin redshirting with our other quarterback at number 3.
Right. And it's Harburg, not Harbaugh.
Oh,
but
shoot.
Harburg.
Yes.
But
Heinrich Harburg.
Heinrich Harburg, right. I think Heinrich is definitely number 2. I think the young kid who was a highly regarded NAIA player and came in as a transfer this season, is a kid that has lots of playing experience, has won state or national championships at the NAIA level. Okay, he's a little undersized, but he's got a hell of an arm. He's a good decision maker, and he's mature. And so he's a guy that most likely has already grown on the coaches because they see his decision making. They see that he can run an offense, right? And so if you're trying to protect Daniel Kaline, right? I want to play him for 4 games and then redshirt him. So Daniel's going to play some mop-up duty. So Daniel might be third team here early in the season, and depending on how things play out. But then as the season progresses, I would expect at some point a decision is going to be made to play Daniel in only 4 games, redshirt him, allow him another year to continue to develop his physical maturity. People forget Daniel Kaline was an Elite 11 quarterback. We just happened to get Dylan as well. So creating a year separation between those two athletes and giving Daniel a little more time to mature and to learn, frankly, from Dylan. Dylan is mature beyond his years. I mean, he has had the benefit of the money and the access to an NFL father and an NFL environment. His godfather is Matthew Stafford. That's the truth. Know that. Yeah, his godfather is Matthew Stafford. So he has a lineage, right? Mm-hmm. And as a result, he's doing things that most freshman quarterbacks don't do. And he's utilized, because of their relationships, he's utilized the best quarterback gurus in the country, the same guys that
Patrick
Mahomes uses. So this guy has a lot of upstairs, a lot of thought processes, and the game's already slowed down for Dylan in a way that usually doesn't happen for a freshman. But that doesn't mean he's not still susceptible to a guy that's talented as Travis Hunter. So right. I think that's going to be a huge matchup. My hope is that our offensive line is good enough, especially early in this season, that we can dominate the line of scrimmage a little bit. Now, Colorado's going to have a very good defensive line. That's probably one of the strengths of their team. But we need to at least be able to be neutral or even have a little advantage against Colorado's offensive line so that we don't put that much pressure on Dylan to save the day
right.
as a passer.
Their defensive line, you mean?
Their defensive line, our offensive line. Yeah, we need to win that battle.
Right.
And if we can, then I think that takes a lot of weight off.
You did remind me, I'm sure you saw that funny photo of Dylan Raiola dressed up looking just like Patrick Mahomes, and I think Patrick even commented on it on Twitter because people have compared their throwing motions and all sorts of things.
Well, Dylan has not made it. It's not a mystery or it's not a secret that Dylan has admired and has modeled his game after Mahomes. But Dylan would claim that, or he has claimed that his haircut, which is very similar to Patrick's, actually predates Patrick's. Like, he has worn his hair that way since he was like a junior in high school. So he didn't just change his hairdo to make it look like Patrick Mahomes. That it's just a circumstance that Patrick Mahomes' hairdo has kind of gravitated so that they look so similar. Now, the thing that you could argue is he's now chosen to wear the same sunglasses as Patrick Mahomes,
right? Which
really makes him look that way.
Yeah. And one other point out, and Danny Kaline, as you point out, he's an Elite 11 quarterback. He's another really talented guy. And heaven forbid, if Dylan gets injured this season, we hope that Heinrich Haarberg has improved from last season. We saw some signs of that in the spring game. But I think the coaches will not hesitate if Haarberg is struggling to bring him out and bring Danny in to give him a chance, because we know he's got a lot of talent too. And Coach Rule talked in a recent interview about how Danny has that it factor, not so much in terms of as a player, but just as a person, in terms of his charisma as a leader. He's very energetic. He sings and gets the team to laugh and things like that. So it sounds like he's got like the personal side of things under control in a good way.
Absolutely. Well, people forget that prior to Dylan's late switch and choice to move to Nebraska last year, the premier recruiter of our last class was Daniel Kaline. Okay, he was the guy that was recruiting players and enticing them to come and join him for 4 years. We're going to have a lot of success together, right? So Daniel has a lot of physical skills. and he's got a great personality, and he's a leader. He's a natural leader. What he needs is to become a little bit more physically mature.
Right.
And that will be the best thing for him. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know this personally. I haven't talked with Daniel, but I would not be surprised at all if how this plays out. If he ends up redshirting, I think he's going to be okay with that, because I think that's probably the best path for him to get to the NFL ultimately.
Yeah. Now we have talked about some of Matt Rule's disappointments with how the team is performing, kind of settling down some expectations, maybe saying we're not quite where we want to be. But I also have seen some highlights either from Rule or other coaches on the staff, praising particular players, or Husker Max articles talking about how they stood out in a scrimmage or whatever. So some names I've seen bandied about are the freshman defensive lineman Keona Davis, the inside linebacker Vincent Shavers, defensive lineman James Williams, and Jamal Banks, the wide receiver.
Yep.
Did you want to comment on any of those?
Well, all of those guys have flashed big time, right? Like they haven't been mentioned once or twice. They've been mentioned like a multitude of times, right? Shavers is definitely not redshirting, and of course Banks is a transfer that came in from another place but is a very experienced wide receiver. So yeah, all of those guys are going to become super important to our team. Number one, because they're all guys that are going to be starting and they're going to be playing a lot of snaps. But that also their addition now gives us a level of depth. Like Shavers, as good as he's played, is still probably the fifth linebacker, right? So I mean, he's going to get some playing time in a rotational kind of basis, a spot duty type thing, at least initially. And then when he starts making plays, this is something that Coach Rule just said recently, which was to say that, you know what, the first year we were just trying to play people who knew what they were doing and could execute and do the right thing. They were making the right decisions. They were doing the right thing. Now he wants and expects not just a few people to do that. He expects his first and second and even his third team players to know what to do, because they've all been in this program now. Our culture's now, 2 years developed, right? Now he's looking for people who can do those basic things, who are going to make all those right decisions, and they're going to make plays. They have that level of athleticism, that level of instinct, that level of confidence that allows them to make plays and make shit happen on the field.
Yeah.
That is the difference that Coach Rule's looking for this year. That frankly, and when I say Coach Rule, I mean his entire staff. He basically said, play your best players. He wants those talents to be on the field. Now, the only way they can get there is if they demonstrate that they know what they're doing, right? And so that's what he's been pushing for. I want to see the running backs break big runs, but they're not. I want to see wide receivers making great catches and making big plays. Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. I want the offensive line to have the discipline to not jump off sides and have illegal procedure penalties. I want them to execute, okay? But they also have to be physical enough to fight against what is likely to be one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten this year. Our defensive line's pretty good. So, that's a tough order, right?
Right.
And you're hoping that maybe they're going to discover, Colorado's defensive line is good, but maybe they're not any better than the one we face every day in practice. And so, okay, I can deal with this, right?
Right.
That's what you're hoping starts to emerge. And when that happens, then the confidence level of this team is just going to take a huge jump. And so that's why that second week game, yes, you're right. I'm making an assumption that UTEP, even though it's a unique offense and has some real challenging aspects to it, their past season and their returning starters would suggest that we are going to be a strong favorite. We got to win that game, and what we got to hope for is that we execute and we're efficient, right? We take care of business. That doesn't mean they're not going to have some success. UTEP's probably going to have a few scores. They're going to take advantage of us a couple times. But overall, we have a good game. Then that second week, huge.
Right. Very huge. Now, it was the second team offense specifically that was criticized by Rule for the turnovers in the latest scrimmage. But I saw a interview with Marcus Satterfield where he was basically talking about, there were some videos showing some of their drills for turnovers, with like a guy trying to strip the ball from you as a running back or whatever, or a wide receiver. And if the ball got stripped, then you had to, run a lap around the field or whatever. And Marcus Satterfield basically said, like, if you turn over the ball, you're going on the bench. And that's something I would say we have not seen certainly in like the Scott Frost era or the Mike Riley era, as I think back to them. Sometimes we would keep playing a guy even after he had fumbled it once or even twice, when you and I would be like, well, we got to bench this guy, try somebody else. And they wouldn't, and the result would be our depth must just be that bad. They're that scared of playing the second team guy or whatever.
Or the third team.
Or the third team guy that they don't want to bench this player even though he's clearly having mental issues or whatever.
Right.
Mental lapses. Now I hope, obviously it's different when you're talking about the quarterbacks, throwing a pick or whatever. But I hope to see Satterfield actually practice what he's preaching there, that like we do discipline players if they turn the ball over, and hopefully obviously they don't, because we've been drilling it so hard and that's one of the main weaknesses of our team in recent years. So I'm hoping to see far less of those in these first two games. But if they do happen, it'd be nice to see that they have enough confidence in their depth that they feel safe, putting in that second team guy.
Right. Well, and I genuinely think, based on all the input that we've received through reports and through even the coaches' direct comments, I really do believe that, especially on defense, the coaches feel like they have that too deep availability, right? They've got guys at least 2 deep, and in some areas 3 deep, that they're like, I'm totally comfortable playing that guy. I wouldn't hesitate to put him in a game, right? He's Big Ten ready. And I think on offense now, we've probably got 5 to 7 wide receivers that would fall into that category. We have at least 4 running backs, maybe 5, that are capable and ready to do that, I think, based on what the coaches have said. So now we've got a situation where we've got, the 2-3 guys at running back who've all started significant games. They've played the game. They have had a lot of reps to learn how to pass block, and pick up, blitzes and things of that nature. So, even if we end up losing a guy along the way, remember last year we lost our top 2 running backs in one game for the season. Not just for a game or two, but we lost the top 2 running backs for the season in the same game. If that happens, then you got to reassess, right? But right now, going into this season, a kid who was probably one of our biggest recruiting coups of last season, the Dowdell, who was a very highly regarded freshman coming out of high school, ended up going to Oregon for a season, found himself somewhat buried in the depth chart, came to Nebraska, probably hoping that he was going to emerge as a guy who would get a lot of playing time. But frankly, right now, if I were to speculate where he's going to fit, he's probably number 4. He might even be number 5. That's how good the other players are. So we have a very good running back group. Now, are any of them superstars? Are any of them, this guy's going to play in NFL? I don't know. But they're good enough to play in the Big Ten, and with a decent offensive line, all of them are capable of doing really well.
Right. And like to your point, it'll give those guys from last year who got injured early kind of a chance to shine and prove themselves this year, hopefully.
Right.
Now, I mentioned a few of those standout players earlier. Was there anyone else I didn't mention that you wanted to highlight?
There's a bunch more that we could probably talk about. There really is. And that's the good news, right? I mean, I think there's probably been a dozen people that have been mentioned. And, until I've seen 2 games, until after that Colorado game, I'm withholding judgment on a lot of the accolades that some of this talent has given, and the level of confidence that our coaches have on them. Because, it's one thing to say I'm confident in this player. It's another thing to actually demonstrate it by playing them in a game that isn't decided, right? And that's going to happen in week 2 at Colorado.
Right. Now, before we get to week 2 at Colorado, we do have the first game, which is against UTEP. What does that stand for again?
University of Texas, El Paso.
Okay, there we go. Yes, so they are a Conference USA school. They were 3-9 last year and actually let go of their coach. So they've got a new coach this year. He's only 34 years old, so he's very young.
Yeah, he's one of the youngest, if not the youngest.
Yeah. That's going to be a home game for Nebraska in the afternoon on August 31st. As we mentioned, they are coming off a 3-9 season. They've got a new coach, so they've got a lot to build from. I believe they do have quite a few younger players. They had quite a few seniors that left last year. So they will probably be messy in many ways. That's what I would expect. With a younger team, a new coach, they're probably getting used to their system as well. The offense they have been running is very hurry-up focused in terms of getting back to the line of scrimmage quickly after the play. They're one of the fastest in the country when it comes to that. So that's going to be a challenge for our team, and I'm sure something that we're practicing against.
I mean, basically, Coach Rule has indicated that they are now shifted to preparation for week 1. So effectively, fall camp's over.
Right.
And they are now focused, even though because we haven't gotten into school yet, we still are in fall camp, which what that means is there's no limits on the amount of time. Once you get into season, right. Then you are governed by the 25-hour a week rule. Okay, for total time that you can have the student athlete. But during fall camp, that limit doesn't apply. So they're still utilizing fall camp, and fall camp isn't over. But in terms of focus, their focus is now on UTEP. Okay,
Right.
This is a program that should be an easy game. You look at it on paper, this is a team that didn't do very well last year, lost a lot of starters, has some new starters, has a young coach. All kinds of reasons for us to be optimistic that we are going to win this game comfortably. But this is one of these teams that's got this wacky, unique offense that plays at a very rapid rate. And you know what? Let's say you kick their butt, except for 3 plays. On 3 plays, they get up to the line of scrimmage and get lined up before you can get your stuff together. And they end up getting a broken play that goes for 30 yards, and then another broken play that goes for 60 yards, and then another broken play that goes for 50 yards, and they got 21 points. Now all of a sudden you're in a battle, even though you're a way better team.
Now, I didn't look this far into UTEP. Since they do have a new head coach, and I presume he brought in his own coordinators and stuff, has he changed up their offense from the past recent years?
That is, well, I'm not sure. Are you sure he's a first-year coach, or is he a second-year coach?
No, he's first-year coach.
He's a first-year coach. Well, then I would say yes. He's almost certainly brought in new staff, and that means these kids are learning that new approach for the first time. And there's a level of fitness that players need to have for that kind of an offensive concept that doesn't easily get acquired. So we'll see how far advanced they are in that. And if they're just learning it, then there's a higher probability that they're going to self-destruct, that they're going to have false starts, position or procedural penalties, things of that nature that will limit what they do. Now, if this head coach is smart, he's going to keep his game plan very simple. He's going to identify the things where he thinks he has the best chance for success, and he's probably going to execute those things as highly as he can. And in doing so, do it as fast as he can so that he can catch us off guard. He's not planning to line up 11 on 11 and beat us. He's planning on fooling us or out-quicking us so that he can sneak success. Right?
Yep. And it is worth noting that they have 2 starting quarterbacks who are currently fighting for that starting position. And as of today, when we're recording this, it has still not been announced who that starting quarterback is. So that could be either a good thing or bad thing for them. on the one hand, it can be kind of bad almost to like not have that defined leader. But from the comments I saw from the head coach, he was saying, I'm very confident in both of them. And so if one of them comes in the game and struggles against our defense, like where we're blitzing and we're getting sacks on him and stuff, they may well come out in the second half with the other guy and give that a try, and try to spark their offense in a different way. So that's something to watch out for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting game. I hope and frankly, if we're going to have this kind of season I'm hopeful for, we need to win this game comfortably, which would say 21 to 24 points.
Right.
Now the question is, how many bonehead mistakes do we have? How many times does our defense glitch and they get a successful play, or they get a cheap touchdown on a pick on the other way, right, on their defense, or they get a kickoff return, punt return, special teams disaster. If we can avoid all of those things and we don't throw picks or give them a lot of turnovers, then I could see it becoming a one-sided show.
Right. So we're going to go ahead and give our predictions here. We're getting into that time of the year where we'll be getting back into our weekly episodes on college football. And I'm going to go ahead and predict that it's going to be kind of an ugly game on both sides, and that our offense is going to have some penalties, maybe turn the ball over once or twice, but that they are going to do the same, perhaps even more, since they have this new young offense like we mentioned, and our defense is the strength of our team. So I'm going to predict it's actually be a bit lower scoring than one might expect, that both offenses will kind of struggle to get things going, but in the end our quality will shine through. So I'm going to say that we win 24-10, and I will be pleasantly surprised if we come out there and dominate them. I will go in glass half empty and be pleasantly surprised if if we do better than expected.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to go a little more Kool-Aid drinking, and I'm going to say we're going to go. It's going to be 48-21. Okay. 48-21. We're going to make a couple mistakes. They're going to score some points on us on bonehead first game jitter mistakes, or them just executing at a high level and beating us to the line of scrimmage with their new offensive philosophy. So they're going to score 21 points, which is more than I want.
Right.
But I think our offense is going to dominate.
I was going to say, if we score 48 points, okay, say it's 48-14 in the fourth quarter, are we subbing in our third string guys and they maybe get one touchdown near the end that's kind of garbage time?
Well, that might be one of them, right. It depends on when the scores happen.
Right.
If it's tight early because we make some mistakes early and all of a sudden at halftime it's 14-14 or 21-14 or something like that, and then we come out in the second half and lock things down and dominate or something like that. I could see that scenario as well. But one way or another, they're going to get to around 21 points. And I think we're going to score ultimately in the high 40s because I expect that we will have a considerable advantage on both the offensive and defensive lines. So we should be able to have chunk plays running the football and big chunk plays passing the football.
Right. Give Dylan the protection he needs to find the long pass that we know he can make. That's one of the fun things about this year is we finally have a quarterback that can throw the deep ball.
Exactly.
We haven't had that in I don't know how long.
That's right.
Yeah. And then one other fun prediction, this weekend actually in Ireland, Georgia Tech is playing against Florida State. So obviously Nebraska played in Ireland last year, kind of this week 0 time
2
frame.
2 years ago. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, 2 years ago. So I figured it'd be fun to give a little prediction for that. I think I saw on ESPN it was like a 10-point favorite for FSU. That's what the Vegas people are saying. So I'm going to go ahead and predict that FSU wins that one. I know that they lost their
quarterback.
Right, their senior quarterback from last year that got injured right at the end of the year and caused all the controversy that we went over in the past. So they've definitely lost some talent, but I still think they're going to be a good team. I think they're definitely ranked in the top 25 this year for the preseason. So I'll say that one will maybe be a bit higher scoring, but FSU wins 42-28 over Georgia Tech.
It's a good score. The thing with playing in Ireland, having gone to that game myself 2 years ago, is how focused is the team going to be, right? There's a lot of distractions over there.
Right.
I mean, you're having a lot of fun. It's a great country. It's a beautiful stadium. I mean, there's a lot to get you distracted. So it really does amount to who's going to have the team the most focused. I think Florida State, coming off of the frustration of the end of their otherwise great season last year, is going to be a team with a chip on their shoulder, and I think they're going to be locked in. Georgia Tech, they had kind of an up and down year, and I don't even know where I could describe them as trending. Are they trending up or are they trending down? I can't answer that question. So I'm going to say Florida State's going to win this game, but because it's early, I would also say 42 for Florida State, but I'm going to say Georgia Tech maybe only scores 14. I think it's going to be a more dominant victory for Florida State.
Okay, I like that. And one final thing to kind of surprise you with here, Dad, but I thought since this is our podcast before the season starts, before the UTEP game, we should give a season-wide prediction or just lay out what our expectations are for this year. Obviously, our minimum expectation for this year is going to a bowl game, which is what it was last year, and we fell just short of that, with our losing stretch at the end of the year that was very frustrating. But we're obviously hopeful that we will pass that mark this year and hopefully even get to 7 or 8 wins potentially. Looking at our schedule, I'm thinking that being realistic with myself, and tempering expectations and all that, I think the most we can hope for is 8 wins, 8 and 4, because we have that stretch near the end of the year of Ohio State, UCLA, USC, and Wisconsin. I think all 4 of those.
And Iowa,
right. Now, Iowa, we can beat, right? We've been so close with them before. We have beaten them before.
but we're playing them at Iowa this year.
True.
And at night.
Yes, 6:30, I'm seeing on the list here. But, if the season trends in the way I want, then we'll be going in that game with,
True.
coming off some maybe hard losses, but we'll have won earlier in the year. And I don't know where.
But again, Iowa has the most easy, gifty schedule in all the Big Ten. And so Iowa's going to be fighting for potentially one of the two to play for the championship.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? So if you add in Iowa and Colorado, right, then there's 6 losses.
Tough games, right?
Right. So we're 6 and 6, right?
Right.
So this is a hard schedule. Even though we may be a better team this year than last year, but our schedule may be the same just because we're playing kind of tougher opponents.
Right.
But I think Iowa's beatable and Colorado's beatable because we played them in Colorado last year, and we're being competitive with them in the first half.
That gets you to 8 and 4.
Right. That would get you to 8 and 4.
Yep.
I think once again, more realistic is probably 6 and 6, 7 and 5 type year. But I want us to be at a position at a level where we can comfortably say we're going to beat Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana. Those are some of the teams we have before that harder stretch.
Right.
So I think our first step is to prove that we're a step above those teams and being able to beat them consistently. And then the next step is like, hey, can we go to that higher level? Like the UCLAs, the USCs, the Wisconsins, the Iowas.
Right.
So that's really what I'm looking to see. So it's very critical that we do rack up the wins in this first half of the year because we have such a tough second half of the year.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that 7 and 5 is gonna be my prediction.
Okay. Well, I would say 7 and 5 is my floor. Like I that's what I really, really want. I'm going to be disappointed with 6 and 6, even though that gets us to a bowl game, and that's I can begrudgingly say, yep, we've made progress. That's good. But like you say, given the schedule that we have this year, which it could have been a lot worse, right? And the fact that we should be able to compete with Colorado. If we win that Colorado game, then we should be 3-0 in the non-conference. If we're 3-0 in the non-conference, there's 3 wins. Well, now can we be about 500 in the Big Ten? Can we? We're going to play 9 games. Can we be 4 and 5 in the Big Ten? If we're 4 and 5 in the Big Ten and win those 3 non-cons, there's your 7. There's your 7 and 5. Right? Yep. If we can be 5 and 4, then there's 8 and 4. Right? Now, being 6 and 3, that would be huge. So my ceiling is 9 and 3. Right? But 7-4 is my prediction. That's where that's where the floor is for me, and that's where I want to see us happen. 7-5, and hope for 8-4.
Right. Well, and I'm trying to remember, was it under Riley or Scott where we had that 7-0 start to the season and then lost like the last 5 games all in a row? Because I could see a situation similar to that this year, right? Because if we beat Colorado, like you say, then
right,
it's very...
And there's a very good chance we would then be favorite to win all the way to Ohio State. I mean,
right.
That's the end of October, right? I mean, we would be, if we beat Colorado 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we could be 7-0 going into the Ohio State game.
Right.
Right? I mean, that, but then we lose to Ohio State, then we play UCLA. But we play UCLA at Nebraska. I predict a Nebraska victory in that UCLA game. I think we're going to win that. And then USC, we're going to lose to USC. It's at USC. We're going to lose to USC, probably. Then we play Wisconsin at home. Well, the Wisconsin game last year was 24-21. Okay? Wisconsin's improved themselves quite a bit, too. But we have more returning starters than anybody else in the Big Ten. So, damn it, we're at home. We got to get the Wisconsin monkey off our back. That's a victory. That's got to be a victory. And if we get that, then maybe we get Iowa. That's how you get the 9-3, 10-2, and have a storied season.
Right. Well, yeah. What you just described would be a 10-2. Right. That would be obviously incredible.
Right.
Jump from where we've been.
You can see how Nebraska fans look at that and say, okay, 24-21 was the well, no, I'm misstating that. We played a close game against Wisconsin last year. We played a really close game against Iowa last year. If we can just push those a little bit more and maybe get on the other side of that hump for those two teams, and then we beat UCLA, because I think we're a better team than UCLA. We've got a better coach. We've got better talent right now, and they're in their first year of a new coach. And they're going to have to travel across the country to play in Lincoln in November, mid-November, windy and cold, right? So
yeah, that's a good point.
So that could be a deal. So I just think, actually it's early November, but still, it's still going to be shitty in Nebraska in early November. So I'm thinking UCLA is going to be a victory for us. So if we can just beat that damn Colorado,
right,
then I think we were in a great position to have 7, 8, maybe even 9 wins by the end of the season.
I had forgotten how close the Wisconsin game was last year, so you're right to bring that up as a good comparison point. So, so what do you say then? If 7-5 is your floor, where are you realistically predicting? 8-4 then?
No, I'm pretty much 7-5.
Okay.
I'm at the floor because I just, until like I said, after the Colorado game, ask me again. If we're 2-0 after Colorado, then I will be bullish and probably say I think 8-4 is realistic. You know what I mean? But I can't say that before the Colorado game, because I can very, very easily see this damn Colorado team coming into Lincoln and basically playing over their heads and using their cockiness because they have 2 players that are better than anybody else we have.
Right.
Okay, and those 2 players by themselves and those individual matchups can beat us if we're not able to lock in and control the line of scrimmage. So it's so important that we control the line of scrimmage and that we play low error football. I anticipate Dylan throwing 2 to 3 interceptions in that game. I really do. And if we do, it's going to be a dogfight to the last snap. Okay? If Dylan doesn't throw 2 or 3 interceptions or have a fumble or whatever, have 3 turnovers, then I think we win.
Yeah. Well, and we'll definitely be watching Colorado's opponent. And I remember they play an FCS or group of 5
North Dakota
type.
State,
Okay.
who is ranked number 2 in the preseason for Division II.
Okay.
They are a perennial power. I mean, they've won probably 5 of the last 10 national championships in that division. They are a great football team with lesser players, but they are great, and they are extremely well coached.
Okay.
They will not be intimidated by Colorado.
Yeah. Well, that's one I'll definitely be keeping an eye on, because see how Colorado performs that game versus how we perform against UTEP. That will really inform the vibe of both teams going into that all-important Week 2 game.
Amen.
All right.
It's going to be exciting.
That's right. Your favorite time of the year is here, Dad.
It is. I'm going to be getting the wheels ready for this old RV to head to Lincoln, Nebraska, the promised land. And I'm going to spend 3 games. So I will be at that Colorado game rooting on the Huskers.
All right. There we go. So we can blame you if it goes wrong.
Okay.
All right. Well, we hope you all enjoyed listening to this podcast. If you did, you can reach out to us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can leave us a rating or review on iTunes or on Spotify. We always love hearing from the fans. And if you have any of your own predictions for this season of Husker football or college football in general, please let us know and we'll read it out on the air. So thank you all out there for listening, and thank you, Dad, for joining me in person for this week's episode.
This has been wonderful.
Yes. And until next time, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.